Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here for the 1948 theatrical serial of Superman. Now, I've never seen this before, and I've been on a big kick for Superman stuff, by the way. I've watched this, I watched the Max Fleischer shorts, all of them, and I plan on reviewing both of those sets. I'm currently in the middle of the New Adventures of Superman, the 1960s cartoon. I'll have a review up for that too very soon, God willing. But I've been kind of in a Superman kick, like I said, the last couple of days, where I've really wanted to watch some stuff over the last week, I guess. And I had never seen this. I'm not sure if this 1948 film, serial, TV show, whatever you want to call this. Of course, this was one chapter a week, 15 chapters long, at the theaters back in the day. And I had never seen clips of it. I had never heard anybody mention it, aside from Kirk Alyn playing Superman / Clark Kent here. And it's a very small cast. It's kind of a small-scale film, which is kind of nice to see Superman doing something like that and not being this huge galactic presence thing. I was hoping this would be good. And to tell you up front, I've only seen 2 serials in my life. I saw The Shadow with, is it Victor Jory, I think is his name? And that was pretty good. A little repetitive, which is the obvious nature of serials if you happen to make the mistake of watching them the way I do. And then I watched this. Those are the only 2 serials, I've ever seen. And these are not meant to be watched one moment after another. Like, you're not meant to sit down and binge through 4 hours of this because of the repetitive nature of it. And you know, serials always have that issue too of, by the end of the episode, or the chapter, or whatever you want to call it, which are only about 10 to 15 minutes apiece, sometimes a little bit more, a lot of the time they just end on a cliffhanger. Now, the cliffhangers for this are not very strong either. Some of them are just kind of, like, I don't know, kind of forgettable, to be honest with you. I figured I needed to hurry up and get these Dragon Ball reviews over so I could get around to reviewing this to kind of dump what's left of it in my brain out onto you. You're welcome. It's like those videos you find online. Anyway, so Kirk Alyn, I think, is really good as Superman and Clark Kent. It's actually that, I'm pretty sure this is before George Reeves, but even if it's not, around that time I would say that somebody is pulling from somebody else. Either George Reeves is pulling from Kirk Alyn's performance or vice versa. Again, I've never seen the George Reeves show either, but they seem similar enough. And then Christopher Reeves, many years later, seems to be pulling from both of them for his role, which is cool. This is pretty solid, like I said. I think overall the filmmaking of it is pretty good for its time. There's a lot of choices I never thought in a million years I would ever see in anything, and it kind of made my jaw hit the ground a couple of times, to be honest with you. Despite the repetitive nature of it, I tried to watch like 2 chapters a night and limited at that. There were a couple of days like last weekend where I really kind of just wanted to get through this, that I watched maybe 4 or 5 chapters in one day. And again, that probably wasn't the best choice. This is better if you're actually watching it serialized. Maybe once a week, maybe 1 chapter a day, something like that. Maybe 2 at maximum, like I said, a day, which is what I tried to do in the later parts of it. And I think that made it more tolerable, I guess you could say. It still wasn't great, but it made it more tolerable, to be honest with you. It's in black and white, obviously. Now, one of the best choices that I've ever seen in anything that I had never thought of was, if I went back to see, like, you know, when Christopher Reeve's film came out, the idea for the Richard Donner slogan was, "You'll believe a man can fly." And I never really thought about all of these other previous ones, like George Reeves and Kirk Alyn. How did they make them fly? What did it look like for that day and age? I've never seen that in YouTube videos or anything, people mentioning this stuff. So I said, okay, how is that going to happen here? And I thought it would be like a projector screen and stuff in the background. It was not. You'll actually, if you haven't seen this, this will probably kind of surprise you. I don't know how common this was. I don't know how many businesses or companies had the budget to do this, but I thought it was a really neat choice. Basically, if Superman's about to take off to fly, for example, because he does fly here, they might change the camera angle, or they might have like him change from Clark Kent clothes into the Superman uniform, costume, whatever, behind like a behind like a building or something, and then you'll see Superman take off, but Superman looks like a cartoon character. They actually drew, hand-drawn animation to put Superman in there when he's flying only. And I'm going to tell you outright, it looks way better than you would ever think. Watching this cartoon Superman now, it's kind of silly. It's kind of funny, to be matter of fact. It's very charming in that respect. If you haven't seen it before, go look up clips for it. I think you might respect what they actually were trying to do here. It's basically their version of CGI before CGI existed. In a very Roger Rabbit way, but it looks good because everything's in black and white. And black and white is, to me, better to cover up mistakes with things like CGI or whatever. And it really fits for this. There's one issue, though. One time Superman lands behind a car, and when his cartoon character goes behind the car, you can see through the windows of the car, and he's not on the other side. And then when Kirk Allen is on set, back in his Clark Kent clothes, and he stands up on the other side of the car, you can see him through the windows, but you couldn't see the cartoon character. Made me laugh a lot. Something goofy and fun about that. And again, overall, this in performance and the chemistry between Clark Kent and Lois Lane, it's kind of sweet in that regard. I kind of like all of that stuff. Now, I guess I'll talk about the villain finally, or villainess, I guess. This is a female villain that I would be willing to bet was probably in the very early days of comics for Superman, but probably not a very memorable one. Her name is Spider Lady. She's kind of like a villain that uses like sci-fi stuff, but not really. She uses a lot of mobster henchmen like you're used to seeing in old comic books and pulp hero stories like The Shadow. And she's kind of lame. She just wears like a black mask over her eyes for like maybe like 5 minutes of the first chapter, or maybe the second chapter, and that's about it. She's well performed. She doesn't have a whole lot to work with. And she's in pretty much every single one of the chapters. It's not like the Victor Jory, or whatever that guy's name is, Shadow serial that I talked about a moment ago, where it's kind of like an invisible man fighting the Shadow from behind the scenes with crime lord stuff. So you actually have the villain here quite a bit. And me not being a big serial fan, I didn't know how I'd react to this. I think overall that lady gave a good performance. I think a lot of the bad guys and the henchmen give a pretty good performance. I think that Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen are pretty good in here. There's a lot of cool stuff that I dig about this. And Kirk Allen, like I said, he's kind of an impressive Superman. This is pre-Christopher Reeves and everything. Everybody in my life, like my dad. My dad grew up on the Superman Christopher Reeves films. He never saw any of this old stuff aside from probably the 40s Max Fleischer shorts. And when I talk to my dad about Superman sometimes, especially when Man of Steel came out, and I said that was my favorite Superman movie ever, I'm not a Christopher Reeves diehard like a lot of people. I've seen him quite a few times. I've only seen 3 and 4 like once. I'm not a fan of those movies. When my dad talks about the things that he loves and other things I see other people who were around back in the day who saw those movies love, about those Christopher Reeves, Richard Donner movies, a lot of those things people say they love about those are in these old serials. They're in the old renditions and cartoons and so on and so on. I just don't think they know it. So a lot of the praise that they're giving those Christopher Reeves films, and I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just not a fan of them. That's the difference here. A lot of the things they're praising about those have been around for a long time. They're kind of traditional to Superman, which is cool. But I get irritated when I hear people say, like, Christopher Reeves was the first great Superman. Shut the hell up. That's not true. There were a lot of people who really nailed that role before he ever even came along. But no disrespect to him. He was good, too. He was an icon for a reason. I also think the theme song here for this is pretty good. Every time Superman gets into his costume and shows up on the scene to fight crime or to save Lois Lane for like the 6th time, because that's constant in these old serials, when he shows up to do that, they play like this little melody, this little theme song almost for Superman. And I think it works really well. I think it's pretty memorable. My wife even started humming it at one point when he would show up and stuff. So that music is good. I do like that. It's not as iconic as like the Max Fleischer music or the Man of Steel theme song or the Christopher Reeves song or any of that stuff. But it's good in its own right. I do like it. Now, the first chapter of this is actually a recap that I did want to talk about of the story of Krypton blowing up and Superman being sent to Earth. It's kind of that beginning character story. It's probably about 30 minutes long, somewhere in there. And the cool thing here is that they do the cartoon thing that I mentioned with Superman flying with the spaceship they send him to Earth with, and that's pretty cool. I loved the Krypton stuff. I thought it was very much what the Christopher Reeves, Marlon Brando segment did take from something else, and it was from here. It's very cool. I like the style of it and everything. My favorite thing about this first chapter with watching Clark Kent grow up with his adoptive parents here on the Earth. What was interesting to me, there is a scene that you will recognize from Man of Steel that I kind of wonder if Man of Steel is pulling from here, where Superman, Clark Kent, before he's an adult, there's a huge tornado coming through, and he has to run out and save his dad, who is messing with his car, gets in a car wreck, and Clark Kent has to run out there to save his dad in this storm. This time around, he does save his dad. He's not, given the talk to the hand Terminator thing that Kevin Costner did and telling him to just not come by, which made no sense in that film. I still hate that about that movie, but everything else about it's great. I kind of wonder if they pulled that from this movie. Not the talk to the hand part, obviously, but, the tornado thing. It's kind of cool. Usually, like the Christopher Reeves films have like a heart attack. And I don't remember what Smallville did. I haven't seen all of Smallville. But anyway, I thought this was pretty good as an overall serial, an overall movie, show, whatever you would like to refer to this as. Despite the repetitive nature that's obvious for these things, it's going to come with the territory. But I do want to say this final thing here. I understand that the photo that I picked for this review, that is the OG poster that they had out back in the day. I do not understand why he has a red costume instead of a blue costume. Maybe it was a coloring thing. Maybe it was a printing thing. I don't know. But you tell me that poster isn't awesome. If you say that it's not awesome, you're lying to yourself. Anyway, I love old posters. They look great, so I picked that one for this review and not my DVD cover. Anyway, I checked it out, and it was cool. It had its moments. It's not the best Superman thing ever, but it's cool for a serial. I liked it in its own respect, different from the Shadow serial I watched. And I'll probably watch the next one at some point. There is 2 in this set. The other one is called Atom Man vs. Superman from 1950, so like 2 years later. I wonder if Kirk Allen's in that one too. I don't know. It says Lex Luthor's a part of it, so that's kind of interesting. I assume it's an atomic bomb thing. Maybe that's where a lot of Part 4 comes from the Christopher Reeves films. I don't know. I kind of wonder, but I'll watch it, probably try to get a review out eventually. We'll see what happens, maybe in a couple of weeks. Because like I said, I'm on this big Superman thing. I don't know what my deal is, but usually I'm not a die-hard Superman guy, and this has really been over me the last week or so. So, anyway, what do you think about this old Kirk Allen serial? What do you think about it in totality? What do you think about the sequel, Atom Man vs. Superman? I'd love to hear all that down below, too. Thank you all for watching, guys. What's your favorite live-action version of Superman himself? Do you love it? Do you hate this film? Let me know everything, like I said. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.